spaceflight. However, today Carson is going to talk about the NASA you may not know, since he has been working late all week, or at least that's what he told his wife. Please welcome Carson Shaffer with the off-the-cuff speech, "The NASA You Never Knew."
The astronauts were at a party, and somebody asked Neil Armstrong, as the first human to set foot on another extraterrestrial planet form, what are you going to say? And Armstrong, buried in simulators and training and safety drills, I don't know, I'll figure it out when I get there. Polly Schirra said, if you had any guts, you'd scream, "Oh my gosh, what is that? Ah!" and then cut the mic. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, especially Jordan Kamliker, the man. There's a lot of NASA that you've never heard about. You've all seen the story of Apollo 13 and how the engineers solved all these problems, but these guys were human. They went through a lot of stuff. Pete Conrad, who was commander of Apollo 12, was the shortest guy in the astronaut office. So he's vertically challenged. Pete was 5'2". Armstrong's famous words rang throughout the centuries. Conrad was getting interviewed by a reporter, Oriana Feliciani, who said, "The government tells you what to say." No, they don't. No, yes, they do. No, they don't. In fact, I'll bet you $500, and I'll make it up on the spot. Okay, what are you going to say? So he told him. So Apollo 12, Pete Conrad steered the most accurate landing of the mission of the program. Stood on the limb, stepped off onto the lunar surface, and said, "Woo! That might have been a small one for Neil, but it was a pretty big one for me." The Apollo 12 crew were great friends. They bought matching Corvettes, one said commander, lunar module pilot, command module pilot, and they drove around them all the time. You know the song, "Sugar, Sugar, ah, honey, honey, you are my candy girl"? They rode at one point in Apollo 12, in the command module, all three of them wearing beanie hats that said Commander, Lunar Module Pilot. Conrad's had a propeller on it, singing "Sugar, Sugar," bouncing up and down. Conrad said if they'd ever taken a picture, nobody would have believed what they were doing on the way to the moon. Alan Bean got to go to the moon with these guys. They left their best friend up in orbit, and they couldn't go. It had such an impact on Al that he became an artist. This is his painting, the fantasy that all three of them could have walked on the moon. Bean became an artist. These guys weren't just engineers and test pilots. They had a lot of close calls. The explosion on Apollo 13 was caused by a bad oxygen tank that had been installed on Apollo 8. Apollo 8 had gone around the moon without a lunar module. The only way the Apollo 13 guys survived was by going into the lunar module. If they hadn't had the serendipity of the tanks being switched, we would have lost our first mission to the moon, and it would have ended the space program. On such little things does history hinge. Frank Borman on Apollo 8 used to do commercials, said, "Oh, I had a cold." He didn't have a cold. I think the best way to describe it, since we're eating, is both lines open, no waiting. Everywhere. And Bill Anders said he was kind of reminded of catching butterflies. Tried to sleep in that environment. When they landed in the ocean, you see the video, the frogman going up, he opens up the hatch, and he goes, whoa, and he comes off and falls into the water, and then he crawls back up and helps him out. Everybody wonders, what? You know, did it just fall? No, it smelled so bad that he was knocked out of the raft on opening it. This is real hazard pay here. When you live in these environments and work, these astronauts went through a lot. Gemini, Neil Armstrong was in charge, began to tumble over in, faster, 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 until they were doing 2 revolutions every second. Everybody's been on an amusement park ride. I think it's the hellhole, where you stand up against the wall and you pass it. and you get stuck in there. They were doing that 5 times as bad as the hellhole, and he managed to save the mission and their lives. Nobody's ever really heard about that. They don't publicize it. Gene Cernan on the dress rehearsal for Apollo 11's landing got down to 50,000 feet. Wrong switch, and the whole thing started to tumble. If they had tumbled 2 seconds longer, they would have crashed into the moon. They saved it. Nobody really talks about that one. They talk about Apollo 13 because it was bad and they lived. There's 2 NASAs right now. There's a lot of changes going on. And you have to understand, one NASA is the fighter jets. They're men and women who ride rockets, yeah, we have the right stuff. On the other side, you have the academics who work on research programs funded by grant money given by the federal government. So, on one side we have the fighter jocks, we'll call them the jocks. On the other side we have the academians, we'll call them the nerds. So you all know jocks and nerds get along, oh, so well. President Obama is from the University of Chicago. He is an academic. The money right now that you see what's going on is being funded towards academic research. If you think that that's not a worthwhile goal, Kevin Costner spent $173 million to make Waterworld. We sent the first Mars rover for $172. So for less than a Hollywood movie, we went to Mars. It's a worthwhile goal. The last man on the moon, Gene Cernan, crashed his helicopter into the Banana River. Fire, explosion, near drowning, hospitals, everything else. And later Cernan wrote something that showed how frail our humanity is and how human they are, and how there's still hope for the rest of us, because he wrote, as the commander of a lunar mission, I was expected to do the right thing, the responsible thing, make the right decision, the correct decision, all the time, every time, without exception. And I just screwed up big time, again. There's a lot of things you don't know about NASA. They're people just like we are. There's some great things to be learned.